Sanjiv, thanks so much for joining us on this interview. You've had a great career. You started off with Bajaj Auto, took care of the finance and export piece, started Bajaj Finserve, was part of the entire early stage of the whole insurance revolution in the country. What were the key milestones in your career? If you say, what got you here?
It's an interesting question. That's the first, I must say, for me. Key milestones very clearly were, firstly, the last of my education was the MBA that I did at Harvard. Prior to that, I did my engineering in India. I did my master's in engineering in the UK. After my MBA, my family said, okay, enough fooling around, come back and start working now. So the first milestone was joining Bajaj Auto, and this, after my MBA, was 97. I would say the next significant milestone, and the first one at work, was building exports in Bajaj Auto. In 2004, when I decided to take on the exports challenge, our exports used to be about 50,000 vehicles a year. And at that time, we were probably doing about 2.5 million vehicles a year. So it was 2-3% of sales at best. And we, as a company, we had always had this dream that exports should be at least 5%, 10% of sales, so that you know that you have some small global presence as well. And between 2004 and 7 towards the end of 2007 is when I moved to Bajaj Finserve. Our exports moved up from that 50,000 to 625,000. And when I left, exports were roughly 25 to 30% of sales, and they've done significantly well even since then. It's now 50% of sales. So that was, I would say, a huge period of satisfaction of building the exports up, because exports was not just about the volume. It was about setting the right partnerships. It was about helping with local partners in as many as 30 countries, building the right distribution, ensuring that the right strategies for the right product with the right local pricing. Because we had on one hand the Japanese who were priced higher than us, and then the Chinese who were priced significantly lower than us. So how do you build your own position? How do you build your own brand in that market? So getting that right, and which differed market to market, the kind of products that we had to sell differed market to market, and eventually building a business that was profitable to the local partner as well as to us. So I think what the team and I did in those 3 to 4 years was great, and we have a solid team there that continues as well. Thereafter, the move to financial services was more to leverage the opportunity that we saw. Because even as a business group, Bajaj Auto was and still is our flagship company, but that was really the only large company we had. And a few of us believed that as India grows, one of the segments that's likely to grow the fastest and one of the largest segments is financial services. We were lucky enough to already have Bajaj Auto Finance at that time. We call it Bajaj Finance now, because it used to be a captive auto financier at that time. And these two insurance companies where we have a great partner, Allianz, but the companies were 5-6 years old, still in their infancy. So building those, and I'll disagree with your statement that I've achieved a lot in my career. I think we're just a little ahead of the starting line. There's still a long way to go, but we've had some great years. We've gone through periods of slowdown. We've learned from that, and we've learned how to build long-term strategy. We've learned how to create capable team members, empower them, and then hold them accountable. And we've learned how to innovate in essentially what is a commoditized industry in financial services. Sure. I think these learnings have helped us.
Let's talk a little bit more about the learnings. Okay, I think one thing that stands out for me in Bajaj as a group, Bajaj Auto and Bajaj Finserve, is the longevity of the team that you've had. It's not a fast churn. It's really about a solid team taking and pacing it through. So my question is, as somebody who's built the entire export piece and built the entire financial arm, what are the learnings which have helped you, or what you have gleaned in building the blocks, really? What has been crucial, if you were to summarize in 4 or 5 learnings?
So I would say 5 clear learnings. One is it's all about people. Whether it's your own team, whether it's partners that you work with. So these 3 companies, choosing the right team members. And that's why we take a long time through all our interviews in trying to identify people to see whether they will fit into our culture. And I'll talk about our culture because that's really the combination of the 5 points that I'm going to talk about. So one is getting the right people on board, tremendously empowering them. When you look at Bajaj Finance in the last 5-6 years, or when you look at our general insurance, none of the new lines of business or the innovations on the technology or other areas are stuff that we have mentioned. These have all come from people. So the next best option to them of being their own entrepreneur is to join us, and we give them the chance to be the entrepreneur within the environment that we have in our companies. And then we hold them accountable. We have very detailed monthly reviews through which we ask them what they want to do, and then we hold them accountable to deliver. So I think people very clearly is one. The second significant, I would say, area of focus is innovation. And as I just mentioned earlier, we are in a business which is heavily commoditized. So to prevent a guy from chasing one bank or an NBFC to another just for loans that are a little cheaper, what we find is if we can try and understand what are his needs, and if we can differentiate through the product or service that we offer, we have a greater chance of meeting his aspirations and of building sticky customers. Because the way to make disproportionate money in this business is if you can cut acquisition costs and you can sell repeat products to the same customer. So how do you use innovation and how do you differentiate in your service and product offering in what's generally a commoditized market? I think this is a key second driver of what makes us different. Third is smart outsourcing. I'm one of those firm believers that you must focus on a few key areas where you want your business to be different, and the rest give it to other experts to do it. So for example, as we transformed Bajaj Finance from 2007, there were a whole bunch of operational areas that we realized we did not need to run it ourselves. We could oversee it along with an expert. And after trying out a few, we outsourced this whole area, for example, to TCS.
You mean the technology and the back end, etc.
Yeah. And we have a team that oversees it with them. So we hold them accountable and we are part and we naturally drive strategy. But the bean counters there, running the operations day to day, improving it year on year, the transactional level stuff is what they do. So it takes away a lot of mind share that goes away from what should be your critical focus areas. So I think smart outsourcing is very key. Fourth, and this ends up being underrated very often because people talk about it and only pay lip service, is high level of transparency. When we deal with our customers, when we deal with our partners and even our own employees, they know what to expect from us. So for example, if we do a 0% consumer durable loan, we declare what's the return we are getting on it because of manufacturer subvention. We don't need to declare that, but we do it voluntarily. When we, for example, do mortgage loans, we were one of the first, if not the first lender many years ago, much before RBI made it mandatory, to tell them that, we will not charge you any prepayment penalty. So if you want to come and pay a loan earlier, go ahead and do that. Now, our attrition levels are higher as a result because people pay back when they can. But we think if somebody wants to pay his loan back, he should know that this is a friendly bank or NBFC he's dealing with and not be charged arm and a leg to pay back a loan. I mean, that's a great incentive for people not to pay back a loan then. But we say this upfront. So transparency is the fourth major driver of what makes us different. And the fifth that I think summarizes all this together is the culture that we have built. So the culture within the organization pushes you to innovate, pushes you to be transparent, pushes you to think long term, but at the same time gives you all the tools, flexibility and capital to go and achieve it. So when I interview candidates for senior and mid-level positions, I basically tell them, this is the place for you to realize your dreams. If you want a 9-to-5 job, this is not the place to come. Because the entire mood has tremendous energy because people are going and building their mini businesses. Of course, within a level of integration, but that's the freedom and flexibility. So the culture is really the culmination of
all
each
the
of these drivers. Yeah.
Very often you learn from mistakes in life. What is the one business mistake or strategic mistake that you have made in life which has turned out to be a big learning platform for you?
So it's funny you talk about mistakes, and that's part of where our innovation comes from. When we hire people, we tell them if you're not making mistakes here, you're not pushing the boundaries of what's mediocre, and you will never build greatness. So if you're not failing, and if we don't see you fail, then you're not going to succeed in the future with us. So don't play safe. It's our job to see that you don't take a risk that is large enough to shut the entire business down. But you must take small risks, and you must learn to fail. And the earlier you do that, the better it is. So for me, in my experience in our early years at Bajaj Finserve, we actually had two failures. Luckily, none of them were big enough to shut us down. One was we started an independent wealth management business, financial products distribution and actual wealth management for the common man, because I saw that as being a very significant need. And we started with 5 cities. We hired a team, built a company to do this, got all the licenses to do this, and this was 2009. And that's when the entire commission structure of mutual funds and insurance crashed. So we realized very early on that to do an independent wealth business with the lower commissions was no longer viable. And we had to shut that down. But the great learning that came from it was that we actually moved that team to a division of Bajaj Finance. And that today is a very significant division that cross-sells wealth products to our existing 10 million customers. And because here it's to existing customers, our biggest cost for the standalone business was acquisition cost. And here there's no acquisition cost. So the business is hugely sticky. And from that failure, we have found success. The second failure was when we started doing the infrastructure financing and construction equipment financing in Bajaj Finance. And we started this again, I think, in 2011. Because India had started to grow again after the 2009-10 slowdown. And infrastructure clearly was a big push. It's actually one of the lowest risk assets to be financing. Because if you're going to have a road, you're going to have people on it. If you're going to have a power plant, you're in a country where you need power, etc., etc. But then we know what happened after that. And the economy slowed down, but the segment completely crashed because of regulatory blockages and over-leveraging because of promoters, etc., etc. Fortunately, we saw it early on. So within 15 months of start, we had done about 15, 20 loans by then. We stopped the business. So we first put it on hold and eventually we shut that business down. And associated with infrastructure financing was also construction equipment financing, where you were financing the contractors who were taking care of these large projects. What we learned was very interesting from that business. What we learned was in the good times, because it was one of the lowest risk asset classes, there were so many people chasing such few assets that margins were very thin in that business. So your ROE was not sufficient enough to meet our minimum hurdle. ROEs were sub 10%. And at the bad time, you lost money. So here was a business which in the good time never gave you the ROE that you wanted. And at a bad time, you lost money. So the learning that came from that was that any new business line we start now, we run it through cycles. We do sensitivities through cycles to see that in the good times or in steady state, does it meet your minimum hurdle on ROE or not? And in bad times, how bad does it get? So this kind of assessment, we were not doing it as hard-nosed earlier as we started doing now. So that was another interesting learning.
Interesting. What you said about mistakes is as true to individuals as it is to companies. You learn a lot from it. And I've heard a lot of people at your level say that the biggest mistake is in getting the right person for the right job. Yeah. And that becomes the biggest issue. From your context, is there a mistake like that which you've learned from? How important is it to get the right people at the right places?
Not only at the level of the CEO, the CFO, but even the senior management levels. I would say top 25, 30 people in a company, in say a mid-size company. These are very critical positions, and especially in environments like ours, which give tremendous amount of empowerment, but also hold people responsible. See, it's very different when you have an autocrat at the top who is driving a company single-handedly, because then as long as he's good, you're fine. Of course, when he comes close to retirement, then you realize that there's no pipeline over there. That's a different problem. So for us, we have seen in these top positions, when we've got the person wrong, we've lost 2 to 3 years. Because it takes you at least 6-8 months to realize, then the guy's just come, he's got uprooted, you've put somebody new in, so it takes you another 6-8 months to try him out. So it's a year and a half, then you arrange for him to leave, and then you go and interview again, which takes another 6-8 months. So it's 2 to 3 years is a period loss, plus the negativity that it creates within the organization. Because the rest of the organization is buzzing, and this one area will not be. So I think that's our biggest challenge.
Yeah. What's your proudest moment been? If you could pin it down to one or two where you've really worked really hard to get there and you really felt satisfied?
No, there's no single moment that I can talk about yet. But on the other hand, there have been multiple moments. I remember when we started with Bajaj Finance, I think our PAT was about 30 crores in 2006-7, and market cap was maybe 500, 700, 800 crores. And Rajiv Jain, the CEO, and I were talking. He said, and the stock price was about 200 rupees or something. And he said, in 5 years' time, we can take this to $1,000. And I told him, no, if we get this right, in 5 years' time, you'll be at multiples of that. But the first time we touched $1,000 was huge. The first time we achieved a quarterly profit of 50 crores was great excitement. And when I see that now year after year, and no longer just in terms of financial metrics, but I see the innovation we are driving in each of our products and services. Very simply, at one of our meets 2 years ago, our file processing costs for a mortgage loan was between 30 and 40,000 rupees. A file processing cost for our consumer durable loan was 300 rupees. And Rajiv asked the team to say, why should there be such a big difference? Of course, there will be some difference. One is also a 20,000 rupee loan and one is a 5 crore loan. But the teams took this challenge up. The team on the 300 rupee loan, a 300 rupee ticket size, will be bringing it down by end of this year to less than 100 rupees. And the team that was on the 30 to 40,000 rupee will be dropping that by half. Now, each of these are occasions to be tremendously proud of your team, because the 30 to 40,000 is still an industry benchmark. So to have the confidence and then to go ahead and execute and create a completely new benchmark. For example, consumer durable loans. 2007, you went to buy a television, and if you got a loan, it took you 2 days for the bank or NBFC to tell you if you've got a loan. And in India, these are family buying purchases. So entire family goes in their car to buy a television or a washing machine. They want to take it home. And that was the challenge that we put to our team, that why can't we do an instantaneous loan? It took us 2 years, and by 2009, we were doing loans in less than 5 minutes. And today we do instantaneous loans. You can, by end of this year, we'll go one step ahead, where we will send you a QR code, which will be a pre-approved loan. When you go to one of the 12,000 consumer durable stores in the country, you like something, you show the code, he scans it, you take your product and go home.
That brings me to the next question. Technology is changing everything, Sanjiv. I think from the back end, front end, customer relations, everything. How do you see the industry evolving? Because now you have multiple products which are completely tech driven. And we were talking about the payment bank licenses and how mobile companies are going to get into it and all of that. Yeah. How do you see the industry evolving, and how much of a disruptor is technology going to be if you to look at it for the next 5 years?
For the next generation companies, whether it's in insurance, whether it's in lending, the only way that they can get ahead of the game of the earlier generation companies is by leveraging technology. Now, if you have to be a pan-India player, and if you're going to be in multiple customer segments, you need some physical presence, because there's still a certain large segment of consumers who want to go to a physical location to transact or for service. But other than that, the way you can leverage technology has changed dramatically. So today, not only do we have customers taking end-to-end loans by working on their computers, but they will soon be able to do it on their mobile phones. I was at an agent conference with a general insurance company last week in Switzerland as part of their R&R program, and our CEO Tapan over there demonstrated a new app which they downloaded on their phones, and sitting right there in Switzerland issued themselves an end-to-end digital health insurance policy. So this is all real. And I think this is dramatically going to change the rules of the game going forward.
But that's for not only incremental or additional new players, but also the incumbents, right? Even for you, technology is going to be a big game changer. So how are you gearing up for something like that internally?
So our DNA is to always think of ourselves as a new player. We never think of ourselves as established, because we keep driving change. We have technology working at multiple layers. So for example, if I look at again Bajaj Finance, our entire loan origination runs on the cloud platform. And there's a US-based company called Salesforce, set up by Mark Benioff, who's ex-Oracle. And we use them sitting over here in India. And we helped them customize their, what was essentially a cloud-based CRM package of theirs to help us do loan originations. We do millions of loans completely on the cloud. So that's one level that it works at, just on your transactions. Second is as an interface with customers. So whether today you're on an iOS or an Android platform or sitting in front of your computer, we've got multiple ways in which you can access the company, whether for a service request. You get a single customer view with all your loans, all your insurance that you bought from Bajaj Finance, and you can instantaneously ask for a loan. And if you meet our risk parameters, you will get an instant answer. So there's another level of technology that deals with customers. At another end now, we today run a reasonably large analytics team along with a partner, an international partner, where we leverage technology to try and understand what are the kind of best products that we can offer to customers so that it gets a lot more intuitive than just banging the customer with mindless emails or SMSs all the time. The same analytics also runs to say that of the millions of customers, see, we bank every month electronically between 20 and 25 lakh payments. Now, if even 10% of those bounce, to go and collect 2.5 lakh payments is a huge challenge. So we run analytics models to try and understand what type of customer segment is likely to bounce in this particular month. And how can we start the process earlier? We find that even a simple SMS 3 days before his payment is due gets a lot of them to pay. So simple stuff like that. So technology runs across these areas. And of course, basic core technology to run your systems, processes, prevent cyber hacking, cyber security, all that exists anyway.
Great. I've often, in fact, one of the first times I met you, we spoke about your stint at Harvard and what you took away from there. And since we are also dealing with students and young professionals, you always said one of the best things about Harvard was it made you look at case studies and made you think on your feet. What were the learnings from that, and what needs to be done to get youngsters to start, thinking out problems in their head?
There are 3 phases of learning, I believe, at a very simple level. The first is the basic learning where you have to go and mug stuff. So, maths, unless you mug, you can't know. So your sciences, unless you do a little bit of mugging, you can't. History, unless you do that, you can't. So I think as Indians, we are very good at that. Once you got that basic learning, the next step is understanding. I think we are very poor at that. Because our basic method of teaching is only about learning by rote. It's not about understanding. So if you have a good teacher, he or she will try to make you understand. But otherwise, we miss this understanding piece in India. And third is then applying, which in most schools and college, there's no application. And that needs to change. Now, when you go and do an MBA, the entire case study method and the business tools that they take you through really teach you to think hard, to try and understand the issues. And very much as real life business, you realize from the case studies very early, there is no right answer because it's a case study for a particular real life business situation. You have to put yourself into the CEO's shoes, understand what his problems were. What would you have done in that situation? So you think of, should I have done A or B or C? And then eventually you have to choose one right answer, and in front of 90 students in your class, you have to defend your answer where everybody else is trying to attack you to show that they are smarter than you. So doing this for 600-700 cases over 2 years gives you such a fantastic ringside view to what real business is going to be like. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll come up with that situation in your business life, but your mind gets trained to learn, to understand, and then to apply in a virtual situation because you've not worked at business. And I did my MBA 20 years ago, so a long time back. But when I look at the Harvard program now, the field activity has become a very significant part of that program. So in a small way, to get people to do the third thing, the application, while doing the MBA, they've started now, which didn't exist at my time.
Sure. So when you see youngsters coming into the business and you also hire in a big way, what is the need gap that you see? Where is the gap Is it in the execution and implementation and the understanding? Where do you see the big lacuna?
Big gap in the understanding and the application. This is when we take freshers. If you're hiring laterally, of course, then you choose people who don't have those gaps. So they all come with great degrees, great marks, but a lot of basics are missing. And that's why when I speak once in a while to MBA students, and I tell them that, it's okay to ask stupid questions. Instead, you must ask stupid questions in the early part of your career, whether you're doing your MBA or when you start working, because you have to get all your fundamentals right and clear, because you're going to build on those at work. So ask all your stupid questions early on.
So, do you see enough of that being done, or does the education system allow enough of that being done? How should education be revisited in India? Because a lot of you had experience before you actually went out for an MBA, and in India we don't normally look at experience and then studying. So, should there be a paradigm shift in that?
So, in most cases, if you look at the undergrad education, ends up being mostly theoretical. It's only postgrad education which brings in the practical element, even in the US and other countries, other than select particular schools or courses. So I would say the first is in undergrad education itself, how do you make it more relevant? Today somebody goes and does a BCom, what kind of a job can he get? How much time does he spend in college? He's hanging out at the canteen all the time, or the smarter guy is doing his CA on the side. So we have to see that our education in itself helps prepare the student for a particular role after that. And I think that's where what they need to do is to consult with people from other fields, including industry, because we are the ones hiring them. Industry from their side needs to bring in part of the curriculum and can even offer a bunch of projects. So I'll give you a very simple initiative that we've taken up as part of CSR. What we realize is that the people who come to sell financial service products, mutual funds, lending products, insurance, are mostly BComs, BAs, BScs. This is not seen as their first choice job, but they've not got something else. And their understanding, their communication skills are very poor. So along with one of the premier universities in Pune, in Symbiosis, we've just launched a 3-month course. It's an evening course where we take in students as part of our CSR initiative, and Symbiosis has also supported that. And over a 3-month period, they get a certificate on, one, learning about all the different financial products. Second, applying themselves. So learning how, or to understanding first, and then applying themselves. And we also end up teaching them how to prepare to speak, how to use the basic computer products when they are selling. And at the end of it, we take them through mock interviews. Now, this we are doing, so the curriculum was made by our company people as suitable along with Symbiosis. Symbiosis teachers are the ones who are teaching this. And then the final mock interviews that we do it together. Now, this is a great way in which industry can work with teaching institutions to create programs which will help a person eventually get a job.
A lot of this can be taken online, and I think UpGrad is doing a lot of that. What is your sense of how online can be more effective, and hence, what is the message for UpGrad?
I think most of this can be taken online. 2 or 3, I would say, simple ideas. One, make it as visual as possible, and then make it available in vernacular languages as well. So today when we write our insurance policies, we do it in 20 different languages, because when you go outside of the top 50, 70, 80 cities, people don't necessarily know English and don't know Hindi everywhere. So one is make it visual, vernacular. Second, make sure it is enabled for the mobile screen. I think the days of the computer are gone. And with the availability of smartphones in India at 4,000-5,000 rupees, every Indian will have a smartphone. So you have to leverage the smartphone, because that's one product always there in a person's pocket. So he can be on a bus, he may have 20 minutes, and he can go through a quick test or a quick curriculum. And the third is keep it simple. And then I think you break all barriers of literacy as well.
Last 2 questions. When you look at your success, or what has helped you get the success? Is it also the fact that you have interest in other areas, because often people don't have a work-life balance. And I think part of this initiative is really to also open up the minds for youngsters to see, what are the possibilities. Do you think people need a far more diverse set of inputs to really find success?
I would say the clear answer there is yes. Work-life balance, other than for people right at the start of their career, where I can understand can be tough both because of your own ambition and because the position you're in an organization, you may not have that flexibility. But anybody from middle management above can choose to do that. So for example, we don't check what time people are coming to work and what time people are going. They are given tasks to do as long as that is done in time. And there are times of the day when we run meetings, everybody is expected to be there. But beyond that, we have people that come very early and that leave early. There are people that wake up late, or they're with their kids, if they have young kids, so they come in late and then leave late. Somebody may come on a Saturday, somebody comes on a Sunday if he wants, others don't. So today's life allows you a high level of flexibility, and what your own work-life balance is left to you. But I clearly believe that in our day-to-day lives, you get caught in a rut. And you need to have a few other pursuits, not just to relax you, to get your stress levels down, but I think it helps you with work as well, because you approach then the same problem with a different point of view. And that makes a big difference. When I talk to some of my senior guys and who are traveling all the time, and they say, our best ideas come when we're away from work. Because that allows us to think. When we're at work, we have the time pressure, we know we have to deliver on A, B, and C. When we are away, it helps us think.
On that note, last question. What would your advice to youngsters be, Sanjiv, who are ambitious, who want the right toolkits to do well, and who are willing to work hard? What would your advice be?
Very clearly, I would say that India offers us a variety of opportunities today and will for the next 20, 30, 50 years and more, which it didn't 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you had to be an engineer or a doctor, or you were in trouble. No longer. So pursue your passion, but then try and be the best at what you're doing. So that's the clear, simple message there. Second, there are no shortcuts in life. Work is going to be a marathon. It's not a 100-meter dash where all you need is power and some control. Like in a marathon, you need strategy, you need mid-course corrections, and when you've done 30 kilometers and your muscles are burning, you need that confidence that you can make it to the finish line. That's what work is like. So be ready for that. And the last is actually a little story that we all know of, which is, in the African jungles, a lion wakes up in the morning. And he knows that if he doesn't run faster than the fastest deer, he won't get any food that day and he may not wake up the next morning. But in the same jungle, there's a deer that wakes up and knows that if he doesn't run faster than the fastest of lions, he again won't see the next morning. So in our life, the message is it doesn't matter whether you're a lion or a deer, but when the sun rises, you better start running.
That's a lovely note to end on, Sanjiv. Thank you so much.